Oh, perfect. It's funny to see myself in the chat writing hello from Paris. I can assure you I'm not in Paris. I think it might be, oh, who's the other Vanessa Cottrell from Paris? Okay. Well, what we can do is, I'm not quite sure if Manon is there, because Manon would be the one that starts. But Manon, if you're there, let me know and you can rename yourself. Anyone else that's joined you, do feel free to add the city in the chat from where you're joining. So I see Sweden, Belgium, Germany, France, UK, nice, Italy, Turkey, Greece. Okay, I can actually also imagine. And just one quick question. Selma, Shogi, all the speakers, they've been made co-hosts. So I guess it's all the Vanessas and all the ones that. So.
We'll work on that in a second, but I think we
Okay. Shall I start? So, three. Okay, perfect. Okay, I'm going to just quickly share my screen. First of all, well, you can see my name, Vanessa. I am a project manager at Unity based in Brussels. And we're hosting this online event today together with Place Network. It's a real pleasure to have you all with us. I think we're still waiting for a couple more people to join. And you can also see, so two of them, the colleagues from Place Network are here, Shogi and Selma, who you can see. Selma's going to be, I think, a bit active in the chat. Also, a colleague of mine has joined, Kanme. Some of you have maybe been in touch with us already, and some of you I know. I also see another colleague of mine, Ahmed, who joined. Welcome to everyone. Don't hesitate to rename yourself and add the organization that you're joining from next to your names. It can be helpful for people to know. Also, if you want to use the chat, feel free. Maybe a couple of housekeeping rules before we start. So if you're not speaking, try and keep yourself on mute just so we can reduce the noise. What else? If you have questions, you can always write them in the chat during the presentations of speakers. We want to keep some time at the end where everyone can kind of share ideas and feedback. So we will keep time for that at the end. If you can hold on to your question or thought, keep that for the end. But if it's urgent, if it's kind of related to what a speaker is saying, you can always put it in to the chat and we can see if maybe there's a speaker even responding to it directly. And otherwise, we know we don't have a lot of time and we have quite a few participants and I think also a lot of organizations that have really, really interesting perspectives. It's quite a diverse group. This is also the point of the event, to bring together the different communities. So if there's not enough time at the end for everyone to kind of share what they wanted to say, it's also maybe a good sign that we can organize another event, perhaps on a specific topic. But today is more of a kind of a session where we want to bring together the communities, talk about inclusive entrepreneurship, talk about the sort of the challenges and the ideas that connect us, but also see what we can do more at European level in the coming years. And I will start with a little, let's say, icebreaker. If we hadn't had enough icebreakers already for that, I will have to share my screen. So let's see, here we go. Hopefully you can all see my screen. And let's see, I've got a lot of, there you go. Okay. This is not the one I wanted. There we go. Okay. So for the first kind of little icebreaker, I wanted to do one quick like Mentimeter. So you can scan this one with your phone, or otherwise you can go on mentimeter.com and then you just need to use the code 74156147. And you can usually select up to 3 words. It can be anything. It can be a thought. It can be a feeling. It can be a challenge. It can be a skill. It can be something that you associate with entrepreneurship or entrepreneurs and cultural diversity. And I will just leave this up for a couple more seconds and then I'll go into the Mentimeter and we can show, I think it's a word cloud. So let's see what. For those who've just joined, I'll give you one more moment to scan. And see, let's go into the. Okay, Hopefully you can see. I think there might be a couple more. If you haven't seen the QR code, it's a bit hard for me to put in both. Let's see what we have. Okay, the biggest one will be the ones that most people have put in. So innovation for now is the one that most of us have added. Innovation, inclusion. So I see that most of the words are positive, not all. There's missing entrepreneurs, reference to an interesting report from the OECD and the European Commission. Disruption was one. Maybe I can take also a photo as it's still growing. It's an interesting one. Refugee, which is maybe refugees. Hyperdiversity, Flanders. Hyperdiversity probably in a lot of European regions and cities, I can imagine. Okay. I don't know if there's more coming, but I think, yep, there are still a couple more. Let's see. Okay. I'll go back into my little presentation. I think a couple more people have joined while I was doing the introduction. So for those who are new, if you want to rename yourself, I still see one more Vanessa Cottrell, which is confusing me. So there's two of us here, but one of us is the real one. And for the others, you've got your name if you want to add your organization. And if you want to add the place where you're joining from in the chat, you're most welcome to do so. Just a little brief words on why we're here and what has happened so far. For those of you who maybe are not, maybe they joined recently, maybe you heard about the event through contacts and you're wondering, what is this group? What is this alliance? What are we doing? So let me, give you a little quick overview. So you can see here, whoops, no, right, back. There we go. Okay. So maybe quickly the agenda. We have a first part where we will have perspectives from the community. We have 3 speakers here, which are going to give us their impressions. It's going to be quite short, so each speaker will have a couple of minutes, 10 minutes, to give us almost like a pitch of their perspective on inclusive entrepreneurship and from their community that they work with. We'll have a little break, and then we'll have a second part where we'll talk more about European trends in research, but also in policymaking, as well as in civil society. So what kind of connecting projects, what kind of connecting policies, how can we bring together the different communities? How does it link to research? And the final kind of part, we'll have a discussion with all. You can share your feedback, you can share your ideas, and we can also explain a bit more the next steps of what we can do together in terms of promoting inclusive entrepreneurship, promoting inclusive spaces for entrepreneurs from different backgrounds. How did we get here? So this journey is kind of an ongoing one, which started in spring. Earlier this year, we had the European elections that were taking place in June, and Unity is an organization that works primarily with migrant and refugee entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs with a culturally diverse background. So we wanted to, like a lot of organizations around the elections, have a manifesto where we decided on using the term inclusive entrepreneurship instead of migrant entrepreneurship, because we realized by talking to a lot of organizations, including Place Network, that we actually have a lot of links. We represent different communities, but we also have shared challenges, shared kind of ambitions in terms of bringing entrepreneurship, especially inclusion in or through entrepreneurship, into European policymaking and just raising awareness. And I think also for me personally, I find this year is quite a challenging one when it comes to elections. We've seen a lot of far-right parties gain visibility and gain power. So I think it's also the idea that we had, that we wanted to work more with different narratives. We don't want to talk just about migration or migrant inclusion from our perspective, but we want to turn the narrative into a more active one, where migrants are the ones that are contributing or bringing in unique values or skills. And we saw that that's also an approach that other civil society organizations working with other communities were doing. So we had a campaign around the European elections where we wanted to create an intergroup in the European Parliament. An intergroup is a space where members of the European Parliament can work together with civil society organizations. We got quite a lot of organizations to join and to support us. We're incredibly grateful for that. A lot of the organizations that joined are also today in the call, but also additional ones. Unfortunately, we didn't manage to get the intergroup supported by enough political groups. We did get quite a lot of support from individual members, but then there's a whole political agenda behind the intergroups. It's a maze of political decisions and agreements, and there are already a lot of intergroups that often passed before. So creating a new one was a challenge, but we didn't see this necessarily as a failure that we didn't get the intergroup, because what we did gain was a lot of interesting exchanges and support for the ideas from your side, from organizations, but also from policymakers in the different institutions. That we're interested to see how we could work more together. So that's the idea. That's at least the start of what this event is meant to be. A start of hopefully more collaborations, not only events. I think we can also do a lot together in more sustainable long-term ways. Sometimes we need funding for that, but an online event is a good and cheap way to start a collaboration, to be honest. Yeah, so that's the next steps. That remains a bit to be seen and up to us, and it's going to be a collaborative effort. Of course, we want to grow and connect the community more, diversify. There's a lot of organizations that I think would still be interested to come on board, researchers, civil society organizations, entrepreneurial networks, policymakers. We'll organize our activities around an advocacy and action plan, and then we'll plan more events also in person, hopefully, in Brussels, and also online research campaigns, etc. So that's the idea. I think that's my last steps for the break. So go out of my screen share and invite our first kind of kickoff, how do you call it, food for thought speaker, who is Manon. Manon Akemombo, she works for She Did It. I see her there. Hi, Manon. You successfully renamed yourself from Vanessa to Manon.
No longer Vanessa.
Yeah, Manon, the floor is yours. I'll try and be a bit kind of strict with timekeeping.
Yes.
But don't rush. Like, take your time. We have enough time for everyone to speak. And yeah, Manon will tell us a bit more about her organization, the work they do and their approach, and her view on inclusive entrepreneurship. I'll mute myself down.
Yes, perfect. Thank you. Can I share my screen as well? Because I have a little presentation. If not, I'll do it without it.
No, I think you can try. I think you're our co-host, so you should be able to.
I don't see it below. Share screen or anything.
You should have the green button share. Let me see if I can make it.
Excuse me?
Let me see if I can make you co-host. I don't think I can because I don't think
you are already co-host, Manon. I think you should be able to see when you go down next to the react.
No, I have mute, stop video, participants, chat, reaction, security, AI companion, and then more. And if I look for more, I cannot share my screen. But if it's not possible, I can also just share like this. If it
you can start, and if we can figure out a way. Yeah, otherwise, yeah.
Yeah, I cannot, it's not there, but I'll just wing it like this. Yeah. So hi everyone. Well, first of all, welcome. I'm happy to share about the work that we do at She Did It. She Did It was founded 6 years ago by two of my colleagues, Lynn and Sihem. And what we actually do is bring together diversity and female entrepreneurship. What we noticed 6 years ago, or at least what my colleagues noticed, is that when we think of the typical image of an entrepreneur, we're thinking that they would be white and male. It's because of the role models that we saw around us, or the people that were giving a stage on media or even on a real stage. So the first thought when people thought about an entrepreneur was not a woman with diverse roots. So She Did It was actually born from this idea where Achterveld University College in Ghent did research about diverse womanpreneurship and how big this group actually is in Belgium. What they noticed were a few pain points. First of all is adjusting the idea of what an entrepreneur looks like. So we noticed how important it was to really showcase role models and show that there's a lot of talent and a lot of untapped potential as well. of women with diverse roots that were ready to become an entrepreneur or were already a successful entrepreneur. So that was step one and challenge one to overcome. So she did it, started actually as a communication campaign, so research and then a communication campaign around this research, where the pain point was, okay, we should readjust this image so it's a more truthful image, and also start sharing the stories and highlight the different role models that we have. Also, one of the challenges was the lack of community, because there were already a lot of existing initiatives around entrepreneurship in Belgium. But many were male focused and also not focused on diversity at all. So we started with organizing community events, networking events, but also hard skill and soft skill events to bring together this community and be able also to create a network. So another step was to create a talent pool. Let's say it's our Google Maps for talented women in Belgium with diverse roots. So, for example, if a company is looking for a speaker, a host, a copywriter, a photographer, they can access our talent pool for free, and they can look for a woman with diverse roots with a certain skill set that they would need. So what we actually did from 2018 up until now 2024 was really like create an initiative, create an NGO that is both coaching, organizing a network events, events to work on the skill sets, etc. And today that's translated into 4 concrete programs. So the first program we have is our group coaching for youngsters. So these are girls between 15 and 30 years old that can follow a group trajectory to learn the basic of entrepreneurship. The idea is not like you have to become an entrepreneur after these group sessions. It's more like they really start with the question like, what are your dreams? What are your skills? What are your talents? And how can you turn these into a concept? And then how can you monetize the concept? How can you market the concept? How can you sell the concept? And at the end, they decide either that they have the experience and they learned a lot of new skills, both soft and hard skills, or they decide to go to our next program, which is our She Means Business program. And this is actually a one-on-one coaching we do. So we give them 5 sessions to learn them everything about the business essentials. So it builds further on the basics of entrepreneurs, but they really learn how to make a financial plan, how to really become successful with the idea that they have. This program is also accessible to entrepreneurs that already have a business but want to become more efficient and learn how to manage certain resources more effectively. Then our third program is our She Hub. So we have an inclusive concept store in our building in Antwerp. It's a store where more than 30 women with diverse roots have their first retail experience. So they sell their products and they really learn how to do point of sales marketing, how to do the pricing, how to make an invoice, how to create products based on the demands of their customers. They should also stand once a month in the store to really do the sales as well. So they learn all kinds of essential skills there as well. And then lastly, we also have an interest-free loan. So it's actually a loan from 1,000 up until 10,000 euros that they can receive. And the idea here as well is that we coach them. So there is a pitch workshop, a financial workshop. And here as well, the idea is that there is always a coaching behind. The reason why we launched the She Fund is because only 2% of global investments is invested in women, and even less in women with diverse roots. And we noticed that often, like going to a bank or even going to like a microcredit provider, it was already too far-fetched or too big of a like threshold or challenge. So we decided, okay, let's bring it back to our community. Let's create a circular fund where the women that are now successful can fund the dreams of another woman. So the idea is here that they can have their first experience with paying back a loan, and then we prepare them to go for bigger ticket sizes in the future with investors, with business angels, with banks, etc. So in short, I'm not sure if it's that short that I explained it, but that's what we do. The challenges, yeah, I already interwove it a little bit in my explanation, but a lot of the challenges that were there was a lack of network, a lack of role models, a lack of knowledge. And also because we work with women, it's also often a confidence issue as well. So both through our events as through our programs, we try to like tackle these challenges, and we really also see in our impact measurements that the women, their confidence is getting higher, but also their hard skills are also improving. So I think I've explained everything that I wanted to explain, but feel free to ask away so we can keep it a little bit interactive.
Thank you, Manon. That was super. Very, very precise and concise. I think, yeah, indeed, maybe if while we hear from the next speakers, anyone has questions directly for Manon, you can write them in the chat. She'll see them. And otherwise, we have some time at the end.
Yes.
While I was listening to what you were saying, I was already thinking about our next person sharing her experience, Michelle. This experience is coming from Germany, but a lot of the points you touched upon, I think, will resonate also with what Michelle has experienced, at least from what I know. Michelle, would you like to, I don't know if you have a presentation and if you're able to share, if you have the share button.
Yes, let me go and try and see whether it works. You will probably see yourself in a second, but please let me know. Can you now see the presentation?
Yep.
Okay, great. Then let me jump to the start. Amazing. Okay, so first of all, obviously, since we only have a few minutes to introduce ourselves and our organizations, I just want to quickly disclaim that if there's anything that sparks your interest or about IDEA or myself, then please feel free to reach out to me either via LinkedIn or via email. I'll be happy to also have individual chats on certain learnings or experiences and maybe ways of collaboration in the future. But I'm now very happy to introduce to you IDEA, which is the organization that I'm representing today. So IDEA is basically a company that came about 4 years ago, and it entailed the setup of an Afro-German startup pitch. So this is where it all started, and we're now in our third round. This is why you see that it's the 3.0, it's the third version now. And what IDEA is all about is that we really want to create an inspiring and empowering ecosystem for all the Black founders that are in our community, not only the Afro-German ones, but specifically also the Afro-European ones. So we are trying to extend that, that scope for sure. So when it comes to IDEA, it really is more than just a pitch event. Some of you might know it already and know that we host one of the biggest pitch events for Afro-German founders in Europe, or basically the only one that it entailed both business and culture. But we're also an organization that does a lot of work around this pitch event. So we have different programs in place, which I will mention in a bit more detail later. But we do everything we can to support, the founders in our ecosystem with the access to capital, with access to knowledge, but also to networks, as this is key in order to develop further. And because it's interesting, I think also to dive into this, we are a very huge team. You can only see, I think, around half of our team on this picture here. We're essentially more than 30, I think almost 40 people, where more than 90% of those people work voluntarily on this initiative. And this is because we have really created a unique sense of belonging. And I think it also speaks to the demand that there is to tackle these topics in our community. So what we do basically resides on 3 pillars. That is, for one, the event, where we specifically try to create role models for the community, as well as visibility. It's all about education, a lot about consulting and financing support that we provide, and we just give the community a place to network and exchange. And I think a really nice story is that one female who was sat at the very first pitch event back in 2024, she was in the audience, and she was so inspired by what she saw that she decided to found her own startup and stood on stage at our 3rd event this year, and actually was the winner of the idea pitch. So that's something that's exactly what we're trying to achieve here. I think we have been very successful. As I've mentioned, we have undertook our 3rd event. We have lots of startups that we supported. We have closed a lot of partnerships, which is one essential aspect of our doing, such as with Google or with PayPal, because we're trying to bring the corporates also into this perspective, because that creates then synergies among the ecosystem. We have hosted plenty of guests, and we always hand out cash prizes to every winner, as well as non-cash prizes to all the finalists that undertake in our pitch. And when it comes to our own business, then you can see here that we're doing lots of different topics. So we're not only doing the pitch, but as I've mentioned, we're also working on specific programs. For example, one that is upcoming with Google. We're also focusing on young entrepreneurs, where we've created a young entrepreneurs club together with Snipes. We have a podcast that deals specifically, with champions in the ecosystem that are here to share their knowledge. We're doing some venture building activities and consulting work, as well as different, let's say, other topics, such as delegation trips to Africa, which we have done a couple of months ago, for example. So our model is very diverse, but this is what is needed in order for us to really go about. And I think I'm done with the talking for now. What I really want to share with you is some more insights into the pitch, as this is our flagship project, let's say, and we always go about with 2 categories. That is the idea pitch for founders who have an idea but not founded their startups, and we have the founders pitch. And this year's idea pitch event brought about these 8 startups that have successfully made their pitch on our stage and are now really thriving in what they're doing and just continuing on their work, and we're here to support them. So these are just some pictures, but if we have 2 more minutes, what I would love is to just quickly share a video, which will give you some more insights. And I think, sometimes pictures and videos, they speak louder than words. So here we go. Let me see if I can share this with the...
Wenn ich einen Rat hätte,
Just checking in. Can you hear the sound?
Yeah, sounds
Okay.
like I hear German words.
Yes, it's in German. I'm super sorry. But still, I think
It's
it's a
okay. We
nice.
briefed everyone before the event. Everyone has to speak German.
Perfect. So no, but it gives a nice impression of what is happening at IDEA.
Den ich jetzt Gründerinnen und Gründern geben würde, dann wäre das: seid auf jeden Fall ihr selbst und verkauft euch auch wirklich so, wie ihr wirklich seid.
Es geht darum, Leute zu empowern, Leute zu motivieren, Leute zusammenzubringen und dabei zu unterstützen, ihre Ideen zu verwirklichen.
Wir schaffen einen Ort, an dem Lösungen zu Problemen, Herausforderungen der Gesellschaft hier in Deutschland, in der Dachregion gefunden werden, geschaffen werden.
Entrepreneurship bedeutet es für mich zu sein, auch mal in Räume vorzustoßen, wo sonst vorher noch niemand gewesen ist, diese Räume einzunehmen und dort seine Fahne aufzustellen.
Okay.
Thank you. Super nice.
That's
Very, yeah. That was the final image and the final sound I imagined from your presentation. Thank you, Michelle.
Great.
Yeah, I think it nicely adds another kind of layer and perspective, and the stories that you've shared were, I mean, we've already spoken. It was interesting for me also to hear the very concrete stories from the entrepreneurs that joined your network and the ideas that they have and what they kind of gain from this network. Next up, we have Ifat. Where's Ifat on my screen? I'm not quite sure if she is there. There she is. Yep. Hi, Ifat. Yeah, Ifat is our third, let's call her a food for thought pitch speaker. I know Ifat through a project we had that came to an end 1 or 2 years ago, which was focusing on digital skills for migrant and refugee women. So Unity and Code to Change, the organization that Ifat founded and works with, had a collaboration. So we'll hear another perspective, again, I think slightly in line with our 2 previous speakers, but maybe an additional element of focus on digital skills and tech. But I'll let her take the floor and share with us her perspective.
Hi, everyone. This is Ifa. Thank you so much for having me, Vanessa. I am recovering from a cold, so excuse my broken voice today. Yes, I'm the founder of Code to Change. We do a lot of work on including people from underrepresented backgrounds into the tech industry. And to be honest, I'm a bit overwhelmed with our last speaker's video. Phenomenal work, by the way. One has to appreciate. Overwhelmed positively, right? So it is a very different story in the tech world, I would say. That's the perspective I wanted to share today. I don't know what kind of fields my other colleagues have been working on in terms of including entrepreneurs from diverse backgrounds. Tech is, of course, very specific. It can go both ways, right? If you find the right team and the right co-founders, it can take off almost immediately, especially with the AI buzz these days. But if you sadly get into the hands of wrong team members, let's put it this way, a lot of the founders do not have the network, the know-how, and the capacity or the resources to get around that, for example. We know and advise a lot of tech founders from diverse backgrounds who have had to almost I don't want to paint a doomsday picture here, but this I'm sharing some of the pitfalls, let's say, that we might want to have on our radar to avoid, especially when we're kind of feeding into the policy. Some of the founders that we've advised and worked with had to just leave the money on the table, leave their own idea on the table, and just give up and let the others who kind of took over as team members let them take over, because they didn't have the legal means to fight for what they had brought into the company, for example. And this is where we tried our best to advise the local ecosystem that this is happening, and this need to be tackled, but sadly there are simply no processes yet. When we talk about the existing accelerators and incubator programs, if you look at the statistics there and how many people of colors are allowed in those, I'm talking from the perspective of Netherlands, it has not hugely changed. And I think a lot needs to be done there so that this is improved in the coming years. So we make the ecosystem, the existing small ecosystem that we have, more conducive to people of color or people from underrepresented backgrounds. Also, when it comes to funding, a lot there, we notice here the trend is that there is a lot of capacity building programs as well that don't necessarily is attached to funding. Then it just becomes, okay, now you should join this training program and after the other, and it demotivates the founders as well, because they say we don't need another mentoring program, right? We want the capital to just start our business, and that has been challenging. And the complicated procedures or the hoops that you have to go through, it's bad enough, for a normal everyday person who knows, who has the know-how. Let alone for these people who are still finding their way and don't have the social capital to find their way around the entrepreneurship area. And I would agree with my previous colleague, the first speaker, is that it's especially hard if you are female entrepreneur, because I think still by some calculations and reports, the funding if we talk about the VC funding, only 2% still goes to female founders. And that's just female founders. That doesn't even talk yet about what is the ratio there of the 2% of women who are from underrepresented backgrounds, for example. It's not very positive, and which means there is a lot of opportunity here to do a lot of work to change that situation. Luckily, there are a lot of initiatives like this particular one, for example, or there are a few in Netherlands as well who are trying to raise voice. But given the political scenario, currently there's not a huge buy-in from the policy-making level on how we can tackle that. So I think we need to join forces to make sure that this topic is not sidelined and this stays on the agenda of policymakers. I would love to have questions if there are any from the audience as well, or if you would like to connect with me offline. My throat is giving up. I'm going to leave it there, please. Thank you so much again.
Thank you. Well done. You did very well for someone who's just recovering from a cold. This is really good to have. I think in addition to the perspectives that share good examples and good practices, I think I agree, we also need to look at the challenges that we want to address, and the things that sometimes even as organizations we're not able to really address because we find ourselves in the same dynamic because we are receiving sometimes funds within the system. So I can see that there's been a couple of questions in the chat that have been answered. If there are any more, don't hesitate to add them. I was thinking we'd have a 5-minute break, so you can stretch your legs, you can grab a cup of coffee, you can drink some tea for your throat. And also a second question, it kind of links to what Ifat was actually talking a bit more about the challenges. So I'm going to just quickly share my screen, and I'll leave my screen shared during the break, and then I can display the answers after. We will come back in like 5 minutes. So let's say, 20 past at the very latest if you're back earlier. Even better. So here we go. So before you leave, could I ask you, do you see you probably see the QR code, right? I'm not going to switch into presentation mode right now. Well, actually, maybe I could. There you go. This looks nicer. Okay. So you can share it again. And otherwise, go into mentimeter.com and use the same code. Should work again. Let me know if it's not working, if you're still in the old question, but hopefully we're in this one. I see nodding. Okay, the throat thing has caught. No, it's just like jinxing. Are you seeing? Yep. So I think you have basically you have to select. You can't select all of the challenges. You have to select 3. I think that's what the limit is. So pick the ones that seem the most relevant for you. And if there's a challenge that you are missing, you can also write it in the chat and we can talk about it. It's kind of just the main challenges are regrouped here, but you might have others. Okay, I'm just gonna mute myself for a second, and I can put up already the other.
Sorry, I still see the same question.
Let me check. Okay, thanks for letting me know.
I don't know if it's only me.
Maybe I have to present this. Check again now. Does it work? Should switch.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it switched. Okay, perfect. So you can actually now see.
Okay, yes, thank you very much.
Can we put the music back for a couple of minutes? Now we're getting used to all the music, so we need. All right.
Vanessa, so is it, we've got 4 minutes?
Yeah, a couple of minutes. Yeah, okay. I'll quickly get something to drink. Good. Sorry, whenever I share my screen, the music goes off. We can't have both, apparently. It's either knowledge or music. I already got. So, I mean, access to finance and funding is the one that, see if some more people will slowly come back. There might have been some that haven't yet submitted. But let's see. Okay, we can slowly come back. For those, still a couple of people away from the screen, but I think most of us are back. We're going to start with our second part. We have 3 more speakers who've been patiently waiting for their turn. Kind of matching, I think, or maybe a counterpart to the first 3 interventions that we've had, even though all of them, I think we could already detect a bit of maybe a common line, maybe a European level line, something also to do with shared challenges. But I think the second part will be more focused on this element of what kind of links and trends can we detect between the different communities from perspectives of research, but also from perspectives of policymakers, European policymakers, as well as civil society organizations such as Place Network, working with different partners on multi-stakeholder collaborations and what we can learn from them, and what are the gaps and what can we still improve. If anyone, I still see the numbers growing up. It's very interesting. I mean, I think it's been clear from the first 3 interventions that access to finance and funding has been a point that has been mentioned a lot. And I think that's also something that is mentioned a lot in Unity's network from the entrepreneurs that we work with. It's a topic that is often, I think, addressed in policies events on this topic of entrepreneurship. So access to finance and funding, especially in the context of inclusion and diversity. As we know, there are certain groups that are missing out on a lot of the funding, and a lot of the capital is going to specific groups. Network and partnerships, and the second largest one is discrimination and public bias. Again, that's something, as I mentioned at the beginning, we want to work on. And I think there's also quite a few organizations interested in doing more on that. Political representation is small, but the biggest one indeed is access to finance. I can see if I'll stop sharing my screen now, but I can go back later. Eva, could I give the floor to you? Would you be ready to share your perspective from CREAM? Eva's based in Birmingham. I will introduce a bit more about her work and the organization. Do you want to share? Do you have access to the share button if you want to share any screens, or is that working for you?
So thanks, Vanessa. I don't have any slides, so I'll just speak for 10 minutes. Hello, everybody, and many thanks to Vanessa for inviting me to contribute to this event. I'm Eva Kashperov. I'm a researcher at Aston University in Birmingham. I am based at CREM, the Center for Research in Ethnic Minority Entrepreneurship. And Vanessa asked me to say a few words about CREM's perspective, or CREM's approach to inclusive entrepreneurship, and especially how a long-standing work on minority and migrant entrepreneurship kind of links with some of the more recent work that we've done around civic and political participation of migrants. A little about me. I joined CREM in 2020, having previously worked on various projects looking at underrepresented and disadvantaged groups of entrepreneurs. I was involved in a couple of annual assessments of inclusive enterprise policies in the UK as part of the OECD's program of work on inclusive entrepreneurship. This is about 6 years ago. And so, I have this broader interest in how do we create opportunities for all to start and run a business. CREM is a leading research centre in the UK on ethnic minority, migrant and refugee entrepreneurship. We've just celebrated our 20th anniversary this year. And in terms of our approach, there is a growing emphasis on community engagement and impact in the academia, but CREM has led on this agenda for many years. And the center has always, or people at the center have always had this commitment to engage scholarship, and so all of our projects involve some kind of collaboration with external organizations from across sectors. And we really want to, in our work, we really want to develop long-lasting relationships with our partners, with our collaborators, to relationships that could potentially lead to positive social change. Much of our work has a strong policy and support orientation. So many of our projects look at how do we develop a more inclusive entrepreneurial ecosystem and improve access to support for migrant and minority entrepreneurs. I want to tell you just briefly about a number of our projects that have that connection between entrepreneurship and participation. One of our most recent flagship projects was a comprehensive review of a literature on barriers faced by ethnic minority and migrant entrepreneurs in the UK, which really looked at evidence over the past 2 decades and resulted in a report called Time to Change, which was published a couple of years ago. And in that report, we set out a number of recommendations to address the barriers faced by minority and migrant entrepreneurs, including many other things that I think in our report that resonate with what has been said today at today's event. So issues with accessing quality business support, finance is a big one, and also access to wider product markets are really 3 biggest barriers faced by minority and migrant entrepreneurs in the UK. The key issue that we highlight in our Time to Change report is that ethnic minority and migrant communities in the UK are consistently more entrepreneurial, more likely to start a business, but we also find that they're less likely to survive, and they're less likely to develop their businesses into more mature firms that can both create jobs and generate stable income over time. We have estimated that in our report that if the recommendations set out in Time to Change were implemented, this would boost the growth potential of minority and migrant businesses and substantially increase the contribution to the UK's economy from the current £25 billion in gross value added a year to about £100 billion a year. So since the Time to Change report was published 2 years ago, we've secured some additional funding to work with organizations and try and implement some of those recommendations. And we do that by working with local, regional, national partner organizations like the West Midlands Combined Authority and NatWest Bank to pilot a number of initiatives in this area. And without going into too much detail about those recommendations, I just want to mention one of them, which is to include minority and migrant entrepreneurs in the enterprise policymaking process in order to make enterprise policies and support measures more responsive to their needs. And this is based really on growing evidence in the literature on entrepreneurship and enterprise policy that enterprise policies and support measures are often ineffective in meeting the needs of diverse groups of entrepreneurs, and that this issue of policy and ineffectiveness often lies in, at least partly, in how policies are formulated or how they're designed and who is included in decision making. We have, CREM has, over the past several years, or probably past 10 years or so, been involved in two major projects to address this particular issue around minority inclusion and decision making. And again, I just want to tell you briefly about those 2 projects. Firstly, since 2016, we've been involved in a project called Business Leaders Project, where CREM collaborated with an organization called Citizens UK. This is a civil society organization that promotes community organizing. And for those of you who've not heard of community organizing before, it's a practice that encourages encourages people to be more active citizens, and it seeks to empower communities, particularly disenfranchised communities, to be more involved in the local kind of decision making and to shape local issues. One of the kind of key elements of community organizing is to develop local leaders. And so what we've done with the Business Leaders Project, we looked at the potential of community organizing in the context of business support. And this was really important, especially in Birmingham, because what we find is the biggest issue in one of those biggest barriers that I mentioned in the time described in the Time to Change report, is that many minority and migrant entrepreneurs are very distrustful of mainstream institutions, so they don't take up support, and that obviously has an impact on their ability to develop as well and to grow their businesses. And so, as well as delivering some practical support, the main objective of Business Leaders Project was really to develop the leadership capacity of migrant entrepreneurs to engage with them, but also to develop the leadership capacity to have a say on the kind of, to be able to negotiate with local policymakers and have a say on the kind of support they would like to see. The second project I want to mention is the EU-funded initiative called MILE, which stands for Migrant Integration Through Locally Designed Experiences. MILE was a 2-year-long project involving, I think, about 17 partner organizations in 6 European countries. It was brilliantly led by Vanessa from Unity. And this project looked at how local authorities, whether and how local authorities include migrant communities in local policy making. So we've done some, as part of the project, we've done some research to understand the situation in 4 European municipalities, including Birmingham. And we've also created new migrant consultative bodies in those 4 municipalities to, again, essentially provide a platform for migrant communities who are ordinary migrant residents to voice their concerns directly to the local authorities. So this project, the MAL project, officially finished in December, but we've continued working with our local collaborators, with our local partners, Birmingham City Council and ACH, which is a leading provider of refugee integration support in the UK, because there was a real, I think when MAL finished, there was a real sense that more work needs to be done in this area. And I think, like everywhere in Europe, there is still a very, in the UK, the kind of the language around immigration is really quite negative. And so, we wanted to do something around increasing migrants' voice. And so we've continued working together, and over the past year or so, we've connected with a number of new organizations like Migrant Voice, Migrant Democracy Project, and Social Equity Center. And we secured some funding to organize a national conference, which will take place in February, so early next year. And this conference is on migrant participation in civic, political, and public life. And this is based on the research done by CREM as part of the MAL project, Business Leaders Project, but also some of the latest evidence showing that in the UK, ethnic minorities and migrants are more likely to be politically disengaged, and they're also underrepresented in public sector workforce, which obviously is having an impact on policy issues as well. And so we really want to, with this project, we really want to raise awareness of migrant participation being a really neglected area of migrant integration policy and support. We also want to develop some educational materials targeted at migrant support providers as well as migrant communities, because what we found, especially in Birmingham through some of the workshops we organized, was that migrant support providers don't really see this as a priority. Understandably, we've had austerity, so I think a lot of community organizations are really struggling just to support migrant communities with kind of essentials. But the issue of civic and political participation has really been largely neglected. So I think my 10 minutes is probably up. So I hope this gives a flavor of what we do, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
It does. Many thanks, Eva. I also wanted to add that of the speakers, Eva and the others, if you want to leave your email address in the chat, because I don't want to share it directly with everyone, you can, and people can get in touch with you. Some people might have questions about the research or the projects that you've mentioned. You can also share your LinkedIn, whichever way you prefer to be contacted. The Thank you very much for that. I think also the connection made between participation is very interesting. So we're talking about entrepreneurship, but at the same time, a lot of us know entrepreneurs are not just interested in economic participation, they are also often interested in different forms of participation and being part of a community, I guess, in the sense it is, right? Whether you're creating a business, whether you're going to vote, there's certain elements that connect a lot. So hopefully that has been a good introduction to our next speaker. And then we have two more. Thank you, first of all, for your patience. And I guess the more speakers we have, the trickier it gets, because you want to kind of link what's been said before. But Julien, I'll pass the microphone to you, and then we'll finish with Shoghi, who'll have the trickiest challenge of us all to kind of conclude, and then invite others to also share their thoughts. So Julien, please, I don't know if you have slides to share, if you want to.
No,
I
I think it's, as the time is relatively constrained, I will not display slides. So thank you, Vanessa. Yes, so I'm working at the European Commission in DG Employment, so the Department for Employment. And I would say that, migrant entrepreneurship and inclusive entrepreneurship is not high on the agenda of EU affairs, but it's not low either. It's there, and I think it will stay there. So I will just give a very short picture of what my team is doing, but other teams in the European Commission, in DG Grow or in DG Home, are doing other projects for migrant inclusion. So what we try to do in my team is, first we try to secure sound evidence for future policies, and that we do with the OECD, with publications that I guess you very well know. First, we secure the funding for the missing entrepreneur publications to continue. So this will continue. We will have a missing entrepreneur 2026 after the last one, that was in 2023. So this is really the basis for showing what is happening on the ground regarding inclusive entrepreneurship, migrant entrepreneurship, but the other target groups being women, youth, people with disabilities, or seniors. What is happening on the ground as access to finance, as mentoring programs, what is working, what is less working, and what can be recommended as policy orientation. So that's what we do with the OECD. With the OECD, we also maintain and disseminate what we call the Better Entrepreneurship Policy Tool. So it's an online tool that you can really disseminate, and when you get closer to public authorities, this tool can help you to show where you have weak, where in the ecosystem some dots are missing for a really inclusive ecosystem. I'm going very quickly, but this tool exists online and it's very well presented. So what we are also doing that can be useful for inclusive entrepreneurship and migrant entrepreneurship is that we are really pushing, to the extent we can, microfinance institutions. We try to secure funding for them. So we in essence, we give them financial guarantees so they can take more risk with their clients. So people seeking finance, not having access to the normal banking system, they can turn to microfinance institutions and get funding. And we also hope, we push for that, at least for mentoring or business support advice. So we have this work regarding microfinance. We also have a kind of code of good conduct that we developed with the sector, and we help microfinance institutions to reach the standards of the good conduct and to be certified as being compliant with this code of good conduct. My team is dealing with inclusive entrepreneurship, but also social entrepreneurship. Social entrepreneurship and social economy is today a bit higher on the agenda than inclusive entrepreneurship, but both are really linked. So this should not be bad news for us today. So social entrepreneurship and social economy is really high on the agenda. We have adopted an action plan for social economy in 2023, a council recommendation in 2024. Social economy is business for good purpose that reinvest profits. So I put it very, very simply. But so many connections are there for with inclusive entrepreneurship. And there we have a lot of actions that help social economy to thrive, this is the word, and to have better framework conditions to to be more known, more visible, no more accepted, more mainstreamed in the EU. And again, we also put finance where we put our words. We have finance instruments to help social enterprise to get financed. We have the InvestEU program. And speaking about finance, these are only part of the things because the EU is managing directly some finance, but it's also giving a lot of money to national authorities. That's what we call share management, for them to also spend this money in objective that we set. And the main instrument in that sense is ESF plus, European Social Fund plus, whereas member states receive money from the EU for social objectives. And I will finish with two little things that are probably the most interesting for us today is that in 21, 22, 23, we financed a project called Better Incubation that was very successful in my view, where we give some money to some incubators for them to be, in exchange of the money, more mindful about inclusive entrepreneurship. So going through migrants, youth, women, and people with disabilities. And it was a really nice experience, first thing. And second, today we are still running what we call the Youth Entrepreneurship Policy Academy, the YEPA. So it's a peer learning network. Most meetings are online and you are very welcome to attend these meetings. If you Google YEPA, you will see next seminars will be in February. They are not announced, but they will soon be announced. You are more than welcome to attend these webinars. And the reason why I mentioned these two initiatives that I think we will try in the next mandates of the College of Commissioners that is starting now. We will try to have something replacing these two initiatives. So a kind of follow-up of the YEPA on inclusive entrepreneurship. I cannot commit on anything, unfortunately, at my level. It will not be in the short term, so not like in the 2 or 3 following months, but I have reasonable hope that in the next mandate, we will have new initiative for inclusive entrepreneurship. I stop here and happy to discuss later on.
Thank you, Julien. Same goes for you. If you want people to contact you, if you're okay with that, you can share your email address. Otherwise, if there are any questions right now, people can write them in the chat and you can check if there's anything. Otherwise, at the end. But thank you. There were some dots that we were able to connect at the same time. Yeah, for organizations like mine, working on this topic, there are challenges. Like, how can we have this priority of inclusive entrepreneurship? We have to adapt, of course, to the priorities at the political level. But I can see that at least what initiatives seem to be working, or where there's room for more, are the ones that are connecting different types of stakeholders. So where we have NGOs involved, but entrepreneurial networks, researchers, that we need data, but at the same time we need actions and spaces to, and then also financial institutions. I think that's a big key topic. I don't know, Shogi, are you ready to add one more? I know people are probably already overloaded with a lot of input, but there's a very interesting project and also perspective, I think, that we can hear from Place Network. And then we can, in the meantime, if you have any points that you would like to add, you can start thinking about them and we can raise them all at the end.
Thank you so much, really, Vanessa, and really appreciate it. And again, welcome everyone. Quite excited to have you here today with us, as being part of the this wonderful idea, and just to have such an alliance for such a noble goal, which is how to make sure that entrepreneurship is quite inclusive and adaptable for everyone. My name is Shogi, based in Istanbul, and also from next week in Paris. So, and I work with Place Network, which is an organization that works in the field of migrant-led innovation and newcomer leadership. And the goal of the main objective of Place Network is basically to change the narrative about migration and make sure that instead of just all these negative aspects of migration and the way how it's always portrayed that migration is, oh, these people coming to take our jobs and that type of narratives that does not match the economical, social, cultural value that migrants are bringing to Europe. And we're trying to emphasize that through different matters. So one of them is media and arts, where we're using artivism as a tool for doing that. There is also public leadership, which is also another matter that we're focusing on how we can make sure that there is a front line of newcomer leaders who are taking the discussion to the next step, and also business and entrepreneurship, where I think why we're intersecting with most of you here today. I'm not going to be able to share, honestly, I would love to go into the details. However, knowing that there is almost 17 minutes from the meeting. Maybe, and I'm not saying that it's a bad thing, because I think it's really beautiful, all the points. And I don't think that whatever I'm going to say right now would be able to complement the beauty of what has already been shared. However, and knowing that I have maybe 2 minutes, I'm going to maybe speak more about the importance of the alliance, knowing that we are being part of this wonderful, and we're literally co-creating it with the wonderful Vanessa from Unity, and keeping that in mind that this is just the first step for many to come. And so I'm not saying that I'm not going to speak and that will be it. I'm just going to offer the floor, because I know that there is a bunch of you who may have a comments, questions, and so on. So I'm not saying that I won't be, hopefully, one of the wonderful members and participants from today. Maybe we can have it to a different slot for next year in 2025, where we can take the discussion and give you more information. Because as I said, you're working in political participation. We're working with artivists who are addressing the issues through arts. And we're working also in business and entrepreneurship with many different stakeholders. So the alliance itself is work in progress. There is a lot of potential for it. Do we know where we're going? I think it's still, it's heading towards something that is really beautiful. So maybe keeping that in mind, and with the Christmas jingles and whatever is happening in the next few weeks, maybe just keep in mind that this has been done because of maybe two different organizations, and with Unity, with us, and whoever might be interested, we can definitely take this discussion and move it a bit further. Is there a need? Is it good to work in silos? I think it is quite unique in a way, because you get the chance to work and address some issues in quite in depth and be an expert in something. However, and I know, and as we say it in Arabic, with one hand you cannot clap. So there is a need to have more synergies and more collaborations between us as individuals, but also as an organizations. And with that, I'm gonna take it back to you, Vanessa. Thank you so much for coming here with us, and let's move ahead.
Thanks, Shoki. If anyone wants to take the floor, you're more than welcome to. I see a raised hand from Michelle. I'll just take them. I mean, I see them. Yeah, Christina also. Should we first take Michelle, then Christina? Is that okay? Maybe keep your comments or questions brief, so we can leave more time for more people.
Sure. I just have a comment on what just has been said and a suggestion. So, I mean, the Mentimeter was quite clear that we're all looking for those financing opportunities, especially in the realms also of social innovation. So what I think could and would be interesting, also linking to what Julien has said, is maybe thinking about how to create and make use of innovative financing mechanisms to establish more inclusive entrepreneurs, those missing entrepreneurs. I think there's definitely a way to go about, and nothing to be discussed here, but just as a point for future reference, I think this will be very interesting. I'm actually working on something similar in Germany right now, but I think on a European level, the lever is obviously huge. So just my comment / question.
Good comment, Michelle. Thank you. Noted, and I agree. I think, and again, also I just underline what Shoki said. This is a start. Of course, it was very hard to in 1.5 hours touch upon all the topics that we wanted. It's a very vast start and topic, but I think it can lead us to more specific discussions where we can focus on the elements that are really quite niche and key, but that all connect us in a way. So very open to future kind of, whether it's an events or projects on specific topics that your organization is working on in the coming months. Christina.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank you for inviting all of us here. I just make a big note list with all the people I want to connect with afterwards, and I think it's a great opportunity to just work together, probably make projects together, and get funded by EU as different projects from different countries. So this is something I would like to get into afterwards, and with this alliance, and I see a lot of potential in this round of people. There was something similar in Germany where Perspektive Neustadt, one player in Germany, they invited all of the inclusive entrepreneurship players of Germany, and we had discussion rounds, and I would really love if we could have something like this on an European level.
Thanks, Christina. I don't know if anyone else wants to take the floor. Lina.
Hello, everyone, and yeah, nice I could made it today and to hear all these excellent presentations. I wonder about the connections of the migrant entrepreneurship or inclusive entrepreneurship and sustainability, and especially corporate sustainability, because this is now big on EU's agenda. And there is a link. I mean, I saw in the Place network, they have highlighted how it relates all to SDGs, but also it would be interesting how it relates, to corporate responsibilities on sustainability. And if anyone of you are working also on that angle, or yeah, also some possibilities maybe for projects and funding are coming from there.
Very good point. Is any of yep, Eva, go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's a great point, Lina, and something that I've been thinking about as well, the connections between entrepreneurship generally and sustainability. And I find that even though there is a lot of, when you go to entrepreneurship conferences, there is a lot of, there usually will be a track on environmental, social, sustainable entrepreneurship, and there'll be a track on gender and ethnic minority entrepreneurship. They don't seem to be talking to each other. And often, I think what you find in business schools is that because of this kind of, growth being the key dominant kind of ideology, people don't really, I think challenging the idea of growth, or, thinking about thinking about how business and growth links with with sustainability. I think sometimes it's a hard conversation to have in business schools. So that's just, I guess, my reflection on it.
Yeah, very, very interesting points. Christina, and then before we finish the very end, I can share a few more points on the next step of the Alliance, so I can add at the very end. Christina, go ahead.
Hello, just popping in, and so thank you everyone for sharing. It's been really great to listen to everyone's initiatives and see all the great work that's being done. Just wanted to touch a little bit on the silos and the collaboration. I think it's key, and in the sense that what Shaggy said was actually super interesting in that in philanthropy as within the foundation world. There's lots of talk now about stopping to work in silos, but I do think, yes, everyone has a specialty and everyone needs to focus on their specialty. But something we've seen, FAIR, as a funder with the entrepreneurs we support is just that the lack of the bridge between the refugee entrepreneurship world and the mainstream, if we want to call it that, mainstream entrepreneurship world of the country in question. And that's something we're thinking about and trying to figure out how we can facilitate that. And in terms of everyone keeping in touch, I think, yes, absolutely. And I think more collaborative ways of working together and sharing information and figuring out how we can all boost each other is definitely useful. And there's also the Refugee Entrepreneurship Network, which is looking to currently grow into its own entity. So there are opportunities, but if there's a way for us to all stay connected, very happy to do so. And I think it's important that that happens.
Thanks, Christian. Just a quick question. Your organization, is your angle, is it more research or more focusing on supporting entrepreneurs, or is it?
We are an endowment fund in France, so a foundation. It's a form of foundation funded by a refugee entrepreneur. So we fund in France. We've stopped the funding program for a temporary moment in time. So we're not funding any new projects right now, unfortunately. I wish I could say we were. I would love to be able to do that. But we fund refugee entrepreneurs and organizations and incubator programs that work with them. So we've been focused up to now on the very early stages.
Okay, perfect. Thanks. Agreed. Yeah, keep an eye on the chat. There's a couple more. Yeah. So in terms of also next steps, and also in the meantime, Shoki, I don't know if you, I mean, there is a bit of time if you want to share. Remember the idea we initially had was that you perhaps share also some insights from one kind of European project that you had that could fit in. I think all of us also sometimes thinking about the next steps. What can we do just for our organization, but with whom can we collaborate? In terms of the alliance, I mean, it started off as a campaign. That was the idea. It was around the European elections. And then we realized that very quickly, a lot of organizations representing different communities came on board. And that there was more interest actually, not only, focusing on one European institution or one topic, but that there was a lot of interest to do more sustainable work and seeing how we can, whether it's, related to EU funding or whether we can find ways to do it independently. And I think this is the point where next year, 2025, but the following years, based on an advocacy plan that we would like to draft. I mean, Unity will be, I guess, in some ways, maybe a driving force behind it, but we also want this initiative to be collaborative. And so we're finding ways to do this best, starting off by, of course, we see all of these organizations here at an equal level. I think we can learn a lot from each other, but it does need, I think, organizations that will be driving an initiative. Because if it's just a whole, if we have 40, 50, if we're growing, it will need some organizations, I think, that can take initiatives. For now, it's Unity, and then we partner up with organizations. But we can see, for example, what could happen and what could be a very positive impact would be actions at the local level. I think the impact of entrepreneurship is very visible at the local level. We can talk about it in EU policy spheres, and we will continue doing so. But it's very abstract here. And of course, it depends a bit on the priorities at the political level. At the same time, we would also like to connect it with local actions and create this impact through entrepreneurship, whether it's narratives, as Shoki mentioned, changing that negative narrative about migration, whether it's empowering certain communities. So concretely speaking, apart from future online events that I can imagine, we'd like to have a physical event. We would like to also then work on sustainable projects. Some projects start with EU funding, some can start with different types of funding, or they can start without funding. At some point, we need to find ways, of course, to keep them sustainable. Like Eva was pointing out, this kind of intersection of participation and entrepreneurship is something that we would like to keep, because we do see a strong connection with that. And where we can find also the point on sustainability is a very interesting one. So I'll stop here. I mean, there are a lot of questions still open. I think also you can contact me if you like. If there are certain topics that you would like to address, we can brainstorm together. But Shoki, maybe you want to add a couple more words regarding this or regarding, the European collaboration.
Definitely. I think you've already mentioned a couple points, and I'm taking it back to the aspect of that it is when it comes to it is hugely work in progress, meaning that we know the need. There is just right now, so the why it's clear, I think, for most of us, and I hope that it is clear for the ones. So the ones who are nodding, that's quite reassured. For the ones who are not, I hope that it will be the case in the future. The what and the where basically we'll be going, and I think I've seen it in the comments right now and seeing in the chat. I think this is the question. Whatever has happened today, just for you to know, it was not a result of one meeting. It was a series of meetings with Vanessa, just to understand how can we do that, because of our interest in intergroup that was sadly didn't work the way how imagined. However, it doesn't mean that we have to stop and park the discussion. I don't think that we will be the case for us, at least. That is how we see it, and it's about how can we keep with this movement and the momentum between us, and not just because we didn't get the chance to reach the scenario A. Maybe we have to create other scenarios like B and C and D. And what would it be? I think this what we can navigate in the 2025 with more, collective intelligence, I think it will be enabling us also to head to that way. And it's not just the catchy word of collective intelligence, but I think having 30-something people in one meeting is not something that we can undermine or like put aside. So that's my take.
Yeah, I agree. Collective intelligence is maybe the way we're going, or we're aiming to go. Maybe to add that even though, okay, the intergroup, for example, in the European Parliament didn't work out, there are a lot of other ways we can have collaborations with institutions. I think it's still important because at the same time, I think policymakers also rely on us in a way, right? We also need to provide the feedback and research and data and experiences so the policies can be made in a more effective way. So different ways are possible, whether it's an intergroup or whether it's other forms. And also, if that's something that you're interested in and to collaborate more on, let me know. Then I'm having a quick glance and kind of if anyone else wants to raise any questions, comments. But I think we're kind of almost coming to an end. It's been a very intense 1.5 hours, and I think there's a lot to digest. From our side, what we will follow up with is we'll share the recording. Don't hesitate to share it if you have any colleagues. We'll also share maybe like a short kind of report, a little kind of summary of what was discussed. And indeed, I think our next actions would be based on a plan. We'll include these priorities that have been raised today, existing research and existing kind of insights that we've gathered so far, and have some concrete steps planned for 2025. And it's very open, so you can also join this network as an organization. You can join it as an expert, as a person interested in this topic. Different, it doesn't have to be only entrepreneurial networks. It can be researchers, it can be NGOs, policymakers, and provide the input that you feel comfortable with providing. And not all activities might be for you. You might be more interested in research elements, might be more interested in the networking parts. But I think it's been a successful event for me, at least. It's been really interesting to hear the perspectives, to meet and see some new faces. I see, Julien, you've raised your hand.
Yes, I see that all the information I have shared in the chat, actually, I only shared to one person. I made a mistake, so I will reinsert all my data and interesting link, hopefully, to the whole. Sorry. So I will do to everyone. So
thank you. No, that's no problem.
Yeah.
I'm not a good expert of technology and use of Zoom, so I'm not going to criticize you. And for anyone else, I hope you've seen my email address, my LinkedIn. You can also add me and Shoki, and this way we can stay in touch. And we'll keep the Zoom. Yeah, so you've seen Julien's email address. If you want to know any more on what the Commission is doing and how you can give input. And yeah, I think that's a wrap. Thank you everyone for participating, and for your participation, for your thoughts, for your ideas. It's been very, very interesting, and we'll see what we can do together next year. Wishing you also very nice holidays and hopefully restful holidays. And yeah, that's all from me. See you very soon.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Have a nice afternoon.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations. Very nice.
Bye.
Congratulations.
Bye.